On off.
I'm getting closer. All right, class, it's about time to get started. I don't have a microphone at the moment, but we'll do the best we can with my vocal cords. I am a loud person. I've been my whole life. There are some in the congregation that are louder than me. You know who you are.
No, point us out.
Is Mike Sanford here? Kidding. Turning your Bibles to the book of what? Ecclesiastes. All right. Hopefully we've read the first 4 chapters. We've looked that over. And we're going to get into the book. Last time we talked a lot about how people look toward worldly things to kind of self-help, to kind of help them get their minds right on, say, priorities or what they're doing in life. What's the most important thing? And as Christians, we are making the main thing, okay? We're working on the main thing. And I think what we're going to find is, we can always go back to chapter 12 and go, fear God and keep his commandments. This is the whole duty of man, all right? But I think there's important points here that Solomon is going to make, or that the writer of Ecclesiastes is going to make. I believe it's Solomon. It's all right if you don't, okay? It's okay. We're not going to duke it out over who wrote this book. I think what we're going to do, though, is learn from it. And we're going to notice some New Testament principles as we go along that fit some of these words of wisdom. So let's get into it. In chapter 1, the words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. Okay? So, verse 2. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. So we're looking at, and last time I listed 18 vain things that we're going to cover. And some of the vanity is going to be shown here. But that's the way that the writer starts out. Vanity of vanities. In other words, vanity means something that has no redeeming value. Okay? Futile, worthless are some other words that might help us understand vanity or vain, being vain. And the writer, the preacher, is going to talk about these things. In the first 11 parts of this, or 11 verses of this, there seems to be sort of a breakdown as the way the world looks at things, or the secular part of verses 1 through 11. And then verse 12 through 18, there's the futility element. Okay, there's this element of futility. It's futile. Trying to do some of these things that Solomon is going to list. All right? So let's see if we notice these sections. All right. In verse 3, what does man gain by all the toil at which he toils under the sun? Okay? Now, a verse that comes to mind when we talk about the toiling under the sun is something that Jesus says in Mark 8, verses 36 and 37. You probably know the verse. I'm going to look at these verses as we go along. For what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and forfeit his soul? For what can a man give in return for his soul? So there's some alignment here when we talk about the vanities, the vain things that we're going to get into. What does a man, Jesus says, what do you profit if you gain the whole world and lose your soul? So Jesus focuses on one of the things that's important. Our soul is important. And so that's something that Ecclesiastes is pointing out. What's the main thing here? So let's go and dive even further into this. Okay? In Ecclesiastes 1, verse 4. A generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. Okay. So there are words used in the Old Testament, and this is one of them. This word for forever. Okay? Olam, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Olam is the word that is used. And it typically means an indefinite period of time, known only by God. So when you think of these forever verses in the Old Testament, think Olam, okay? Think until God says it's done. So a period of time, a forever period of time. And there are several verses in our Old Testament that have things like that. The Olam, the forever word, but for a period of time. So some examples of that might be the Sabbath in Exodus, chapter 31, verse 17. If we were to read it, it's a sign between me and the people of Israel. So the Sabbath has an Olam. But we know that has changed. The Passover has an Olam. The incense has an Olam in Exodus 30. These are all Exodus verses. Burnt offerings have an Olam in Exodus 29:42. And so the Aaronic priesthood, if we were to look at that more specifically in Exodus 40, verses 9 through 15, you're to take the priest, you're to anoint. In verse 9, you're to anoint the tabernacle, and it says to make it holy. In verse 13, you're supposed to take Aaron. He's supposed to put on special clothing, and he is to be anointed. And his sons are to be dressed, and they are to be anointed. And this is a perpetual priesthood. This is an Olam throughout their generations. So when we go back to verse 4, and let's read that one more time. A generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. It's an Olam. Oh, okay. Well, shifting back up to the upper area. Oh, that's much better. Okay. Any questions about anything we've had up to this point? Right? Now, I'm going to put this out there, okay? Would you say Solomon is a negative person in terms of sort of a worldly view? Is he being negative? Okay.
He's being wise and practical.
Okay, practical. Somebody said realist last time, and I amen that because it's real. It's realistic or realism. Ryan, did you say that? Yeah. Great. Okay, so realism, okay? Be thinking about that. So, a generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. Is that a factual statement? If you Olam it, it is, until God says it isn't. All right? When will the earth pass away? When Jesus comes again? All right, Ron?
But this verse is used in that way to provide support for the belief that the earth will remain forever.
That's a good point. There's some false doctrine about the earth remaining forever and that Jesus is going to come back to the earth and reign. Okay? But for that to happen, we're going to have to dig into our New Testaments and basically delete Colossians 2:1-14, Romans 7:1-7. We'd have to completely annihilate parts of the New Testament to show that the earth is going to be forever. But this is one of those Olam words, okay? And so Solomon, or the writer, is not saying that the earth will be forever, but for a period of time. And like a thief in the night, okay, we don't know when the earth is going to be destroyed, but it is going to be. And because there are passages that deal with that. I'm thinking of 2 Peter 3. I'm going to begin about verse 9. You know these verses, but it's good to go through them. The Lord is not slow to fulfill his promises. Some count slowness, but is patient toward you, not wishing that anyone should perish, but that all should reach repentance. But the day of the Lord will come like a thief, and then the heavens will pass away with a roar, and the heavenly bodies will be burned up and dissolved, and the earth and the works that are done on it will be exposed. Okay, so please don't take that verse and build a whole doctrine around it. That's an Olam. The earth is going to end, but it will be as God wills. So that's the significant part of this. It's when God says it's going to happen. All right. So there's no point being made here that the earth is going to last forever. And I don't think there's any confusion in that among our group. Right?
I think from the perspective of where Solomon is writing here, he says generation comes, generation goes. From man's view, the earth is going to last forever. Not that it actually is, but it's going beyond our lifespans. It's going from generation to generation. It is defined by God's period of time, but that's God's time, not ours.
Yeah. A generation goes and a generation comes. As far as they know, the earth is still there. Right, okay.
Well, there's two things. There is a false doctrine that has arisen from our brotherhood that in 70 AD, that was the total incarnation, everything that was pointed to, and that the word earth will remain forever as it is. But the other thing is the New English translation uses the phrase through the ages instead of
Forever. Yeah. So another meaning of Olam is through or to a significant period of time or ages.
I have the Lexham English Septuagint opened up, which is a translation from the Greek version of the Old Testament. So it was translated from Hebrew into Greek, now into English, and they also use the phrase that it stands for the age.
Yeah, okay. It stands for the age. Very good. All right. I went ahead and opened up NET too, so I'm going to switch back and forth sometimes. All right, so let's get into it further. Oh, is there another hand? Did I see another hand? And please speak up so everyone can hear. I think I said that last time, and our those who are online. The sun rises and the sun goes down and hastens to the place where it rises. Let's go ahead and go through verse 6 here and 7. The wind blows to the south and goes around to the north. Around and around goes the wind, and on its circuits the wind returns. All streams run to the sea, but the sea is not full. To the place where the streams flow, there they flow again. So there's these three elements that are brought up, three examples that nothing really is new under the sun. Okay? I didn't really talk about under the sun. Is there any significance there? Why under the sun?
God's creation.
It is part of God's creation. Very good.
Things that are happening now on earth,
Okay.
not the spiritual.
Yeah, it's not a spiritual realm. It's a physical realm. Okay. It's under the sun.
So I keep going to Matthew 6 and the anxiety and the worry. You know, we have a lot of people today that are worried about the weather, how we're going to be taken care of, all the natural disasters that are taking place in this. And there's an assurance here that it is what it is, we're going to be taken care of. You know, I mean, you're not at verse 8 yet, but it talks about all things are worrisome. You know, we shouldn't worry about that. God will take care of us.
Yeah. So, let me name some groups here. And Marianne, I'm going to come to you, okay? Let me name these groups. I don't know the physical number, okay? I don't know the dollar. I don't know the financial number for this, of people who are tracking the rise and fall of the ocean, movements of the wind and how they move across the earth, weather patterns, things like that. NASA, NOAA, these are all federal agencies that spend millions of dollars tracking this. Is it wrong? I'm not going to say it's wrong, but they're looking for things, okay? And one of the things they are looking for is the rise of the ocean. Why would you look at that? As a surveyor, I use mean sea level. If Matt was here, I'd point him out and call him out and make him tell me what that is, okay? What is mean sea level? It's kind of a mean. I didn't say average. Any mathematician knows that's wrong. It's the mean, okay? It's going up and down a little bit. So it's a mean. And you can get an elevation. And you can base a project or something on the earth based on mean sea level. I did that for a living. And so it is going up and down. And it's rising, falling, and it's rising. And there's a mean, and we use the mean. Marianne?
I was just gonna say, under the sun is where we live. This is what we are pertaining to, what God is pertaining to.
Okay, a period of time for life. Did I say that right? For living? Okay. Our period of time under the sun?
This is what people get, like you're just saying, too interested in things that we can barely understand or never understand. It's God things.
Yeah.
And He's told us enough for us. And the other things we take by faith because of God and what He does. But people, every time I read something and it's interesting, then they go off into these tangents about what this actually means and all of that. And I think, how do you know that?
Yeah. So yeah, delving into things that only God knows. Now, lest you mistake something I'm about to say, I think we are stewards. We should be good stewards of the earth. I personally don't throw trash on the ground. In fact, I'm almost offended when I see someone do that. I can't stand it. Don't throw trash on the ground. I mean, that's just me, all right? It blows, some of it, plastic especially, it goes everywhere and it just sits there and it looks bad. Let's take care of our earth. Let's be responsible. Okay, Will and then Steve.
It's also very interesting how Solomon, or the writer, I mean, who else could it be?
Yeah, right.
When he starts off with his declarations, he started, everything is vanity. And then he lists a good 3-4 things that you can see naturally happening in the world that are consistent.
Yeah.
These things are not going to change.
Yeah.
Just like how everything is vanity.
Yeah. So the three things: the continuous repetition cycles of the sun across the sky, back and forth. The example where the wind blows circular paths for no apparent reason. I'm going to say apparent every time. The rivers flow to the sea, but the sea's not full thus. Okay. Those are the three examples. Steve?
You may not throw your trash on the ground, but you put it in a receptacle and someone else throws it on.
Okay, well, I hope it's buried. Okay. But yes, someone else is putting it in the ground. Okay. That hurt a little, okay? Solomon would say that's vanity, okay? All right. But are we concerned about our beautiful earth, the creation that God gave us? Yeah, I'm concerned about it. But man is not going to stop what's happening. God will, but man is not going to do it. Okay? Yeah.
You talked about the government agencies that track the ocean rising, falling. They talk about El Nino, where they can predict if we're gonna have a major winter storm coming in. Also, you have earthquakes.
Yep.
That create tsunamis like we saw in Japan.
Yeah,
And they can warn people to get out of the way.
sure.
So.
There's good things that happen from that. Yeah, exactly. I got your point. So there's a Christian evidence kind of buried within here that I thought I'd touch upon before we go on to verse 8. We're still in this first section, verses 1 through 11, okay? And I didn't mention this. I know I'm going back and forth, but this would be a way that a person who is worldly would look at certain things, I believe, okay? I think this is the way the world looks at things, even though Solomon is making it apparent to us. But there's a Christian evidence within this that I don't know if you caught it. What do you think about these weather patterns and such? Can you think of anything that's going on the earth that we now know is happening that they didn't know? Jim?
Well, the sun has 11-year cycles. And
Okay.
every 11 years, it changes its polarity. North becomes south and vice versa.
Yeah, okay.
And you have a minimum sunspot cycles and maximum sunspot cycles.
Yeah.
And that's discounted by people who have an axe to grind and a political agenda.
Sure. Yeah, so in the creation, we see that. There's another thing that I thought of that I think you'll, right when I say it, you go, oh, okay. Evaporation, right? There's that element that's going on that I don't know if Solomon, used that word. I don't see it anywhere, but so I would say no. But there's things like that are happening. The principle of evaporation, which according to my review here, says that about the 15th or 16th century, man discovered this cycle, even though Solomon is mentioning it here. God knows. Solomon knew. All right, verse 8. All things are full of weariness. A man cannot utter it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. What do you think of when you read this verse? This is an open forum here. What do you think of? All things are full of weariness. Jim?
There's a natural human longing for something better.
There you go. Okay. I want something better. I want the BBD, the bigger, better deal, right? It's going to cost money. It's going to cost resources. It's going to cost time, things like that. I want that bigger, better deal. I want to be, and here's a word, fulfilled. I want fulfillment. I want something that makes me full inside. And so I'm going to keep reaching for it, okay? Now, I'm going to pause here a moment. And I'm going to tell you this story, all right? This is a story that my son, Logan, shared with me, but I think it's kind of cool. He might have stolen it from somebody. He's a preacher. Well, they don't steal. Preachers don't steal. They borrow, okay? So this feeling of trying to get fulfilled, okay, or trying to have something that will fulfill you. So imagine your friend invites you over and wants to show you this new thing he's got. He's very passionate about, okay? Can't wait to show you this. It's a new hobby, okay? He's putting most of his time and money into it. He's collecting this new thing. He takes you into his house and he opens a box. It's a beautiful box, by the way. It's majestic, you might say. You look inside at his collection and the box is empty. He's collecting air. That's how Solomon sees how most people live their lives. Now, this is Logan telling the story, so it's probably more animated, but that's that grasping after the wind, okay? That's that feeling of trying to figure all this out and trying to get fulfillment out of it. It's just not going to happen. You're not going to be fulfilled. How do you know that, Roger? Boom. That's what Ecclesiastes keeps talking about. All right, let's press on. There are other verses like that, but we did read in chapter 1, verses 2 and 3 that it's futility. Okay. Verse 9. What has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done, and there's nothing new under the sun. I failed to mention that someone today is under the sun, right? Someone tomorrow will be under the sun. Someone's always going to be every day under the sun. It's just that we're dark and they're light on the other side of the planet, right? So something is under the sun. That too is probably futility. But so here's the point. There's nothing new under the sun. Name something you think is new today. Oh, Roger, what a limb you've stepped on. Okay, what do you think's new? I'll give you an example if you want, because I have an answer to this one. What's new under the sun? Propulsion engines. Could Solomon have known about engines that make things move? Jet engines? F-14s?
Pretty sure you do if you got enough horses in front of something to make it go fast.
It's another way to propel, pull, push, move, make dynamic, make kinematic. It's going to move. You're going to move something. It's another form of transportation if it's an airplane. Am I minimalizing what Solomon's saying?
I've heard this quote from Mark Twain. I think it goes with what Solomon's saying is history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes.
Yeah. History doesn't repeat itself, it often rhymes. Okay. That's a quote I was going to use from George, not that one, not Mark Twain, but George Santayana said it in 1905. Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. We've heard that before. This nothing new is what we're talking about. There's some form of it today, but it was already there when he was alive. Kelly?
When you read the creation story, where God created everything, and then Solomon is saying that's pretty much it. There's nothing new after the creation.
Right.
In the physical world.
Sure. There's nothing new, through creation in this physical world. Okay, Mike, and then Will?
Well, I look at it like communism. It's failed time after time after time after time, and did nothing but oppress the people, but people keep trying to do it.
Yeah.
And,
So
it never works.
The futility of communism, right, okay.
Well, one of the phone call questions that I get in at Search, it's a common thing that people have said, is that we're living in the darkest time that has ever been.
Right.
Or this one particular period of time is the darkest period of time that has ever been.
Yeah.
And it's like they fail to realize that sin has always been here.
Sin might look a little different from time to time, but it's still sin.
Because, I mean,
Yeah.
you can think about it one way. Today we have firearms. And there are people who die
Yeah.
from crimes with firearms.
Yeah.
And they think it's the most terrible thing. Well, if you go back enough years,
Right.
people were killing each other with rocks, stones.
Another implement of death or war. Yeah. Nothing new under the sun. Creation is creation. God made it that way. Okay, Kelly?
I was gonna say, we have the story from Chicken Little, the sky is falling.
Yeah.
We have the new catchphrase, climate change, it's gonna kill us. And it's a political statement that they think, they don't realize that God is still in control.
Right.
I tell them climate change is God created. We have spring, summer, winter, and fall. That's climate change.
Right. Okay. So nothing new under the sun. History is going to continue to repeat itself. I think history is important. I think we need to be studying it. I think we need to study it in school. I hope there's no slant put to it to try to, as one person said earlier, create a political element somehow. There are men in our history who've done some terrible things, but who have also done some great things. And study that, learn about that. Learn from their mistakes. Isn't Ecclesiastes sort of pointing that direction? Learn from these mistakes, okay? Or this futility, this false teaching or doctrine or whatever. Learn from that. Okay. So we kind of covered verse 10. There's no remembrance of former things, nor will there be any remembrance of later things yet to be among those who come after. There are inventions, okay? But you can probably fit it into some category that's already existed. It's just that it's something different. Pasteurization, shots, salves, natural things that heal us, they've always been. We may have manipulated it a little bit and made it work a little bit different, but there's some cure or form of cure for certain things. That's not new. It's something that has always been. So there's really no inventions under the sun. And so the remembrance of things past, it's okay, it's good. Study your history. But it's really what it boils down to is how we look at things without a belief in God. And I think that's what we're going to notice in these first 11 verses is that it's someone saying, there is no God. And you can say that and not recognize creation. You certainly can do that. But it's going to boil down to going back to the way things were created by God. And so everything from verse 11 up is futility. Right? If you think that you know more than God, if you think you know something new under the sun, God knows it. And he always has known it, and he always will know it. So let's press on to verse 12. I, the preacher, have been king over Israel and Jerusalem. Sounds like Solomon. All right? And I applied my heart to seek and to search out by wisdom all that is done under heaven. It is unhappy business. Any other translations there?
Grievous task.
Kelly, what?
Grievous task.
And Mike?
Burdensome.
Burdensome. Someone over here?
Sore travail. Sore.
Sore travail is the King James?
Footnote says evil.
Or evil? Okay. So we're getting into the vain things, okay? And we're going to hit this. But that God has given to the children of man to be busy with. Okay, that's verse 13. It is unhappy business. It's burdensome. It's evil. Okay? Interesting note here that I'll share later. God has given to the children of man to be busy with. Does this sound like God is like, I'm going to give them something to do? And let's just see what happens? I mean, does that sound like that? Greg?
This is the curse from the garden.
Okay.
It kind of reminds me, even going back up to, where's that? Verse 8. I think it was 8. Yes. Yeah, all things are full of weariness. I mean, there's the toil, the sweat of the brow.
Yeah.
And the constant longing for that good condition that mankind was in the garden, in God's presence.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that brings fulfillment.
Before sin,
Yeah.
we had,
Bliss.
yeah. As best I can tell, they weren't dying, right? They weren't dying. Is time standing still, or is there time before the sin? I mean, these things Roger thinks about, okay? I don't know. Did Adam have a belly button? I shouldn't have said that. I don't know, okay? But the guy that had to paint him had to figure that out, okay? I don't think he did, but I don't care. Really, that's futility right there, okay?
I know that we talked about this personally before about the book of Genesis, and I was so glad that you had went there.
Yeah.
The word there for unhappy is the Hebrew word wrath. And
Okay.
it quite literally means dysfunction.
Yeah.
When God made everything, it was tov. which means good or functional.
Yeah.
So what Solomon is pointing here is, look at what's happened after the garden. It's all dysfunction.
Yeah.
It doesn't work right.
Right. Okay. So we're noticing, especially in 12 through, we're 11 through, 1 through 11, that man is never satisfied. Okay. Now in verse 12, we're in 13, and this is what I want to kind of run to next in verse 13. He's trying to use his influence to seek wisdom and knowledge, okay? As a king, he can do that. And so here are some, up to chapter 3, some things that he pursued, okay? All works are done by men in verse 14. We read that. Indulge in everything pleasurable in chapter 2, verse 1. All his activities and labors are profitless. We're going to touch upon some of these as we go in chapter 2 to 11. Striving for wisdom in chapter 2, verse 15. The focus on earthly accomplishments in chapter 2, verse 21. And then overemphasis on life and living in chapter 3 and 19. So remember I told the story, I wanted to lose some weight. Remember when I kind of brought that up? And I was purposeful on that. I had intent. I was intentional. I wanted to do it. And someone asked me, one brother said, why are you doing it? And you know what? That's a great question. Because it's going to take time, money, effort. It's going to take, and will I have to say no to something because I said yes to this? It just so happens I have been doing that a little bit. Is it futility? Is it vain? Well, my blood pressure is down. I feel better. I have more energy. It's of some value, the New Testament says. We need to do it. You know, take care of your bodies. It's the temple of the Holy Spirit. So work on it. But it's futile if you make it the most important thing. If you make it the main thing, then it's futile. So I thought that was a great question, and that makes me think about some of these principles that and things that Ecclesiastes is talking about. Is there anything of value? No, it's all vanity. It's futile. There's no redeeming value in verse 14. Okay, let's skip down to verse 15. And this is the principle within the principle. I love this verse. What is crooked cannot be made straight. And what is lacking cannot be counted. All right, there's a lot of wisdom in that statement. And believe you me, I was the first one to say, what does that mean? I don't get it. I had someone help me with this, all right? I did some research on it. What might be a crooked thing? It's okay if you don't know, because I didn't.
Something that's deceptive.
What?
Something that's deceptive.
Deceptive.
It's false.
Okay. Something false. Something that might be evil, bad, not good for you, sin. Something that is crooked that cannot be made straight. God says what's crooked. God says what's sin. God says what's evil. You can't make something evil be good in God's sight. You can try, but it's futile. It's vanity. Try to justify evil. It's not going to happen. You're not going to get that done. What is crooked cannot be straight. What is lacking cannot be counted. I said in my heart in verse 16, I have acquired great wisdom, surpassing all who were over Jerusalem before me, and my heart, there's that Hebrew word, mind, I thought. Okay. My heart has had great experience of wisdom and knowledge. Now let's finish this out in a minute, our minute remaining. And I applied my heart to know wisdom and to know madness and folly. I perceive that this also is but a striving after the wind. Open the box. What do you see? Beautiful, isn't it? No, it's futile. For in much wisdom is much vexation, and he who increases knowledge increases sorrow. So, Is ignorance bliss? Is it better not to know and to just live a life of ignorance?
I think it depends on what you're measuring.
Yeah,
Christ tells us to be innocent as doves.
Yeah.
As a serpent, so it's innocent in the evil things.
yeah. So, yeah. There's so much misery, there's so much pain, and there's so much vanity. That's what the conclusion of this section is. And I said this second section, I hope I made this clear, verses 12 through 18 is sort of this futility, this negative look at everything that's futile and everything that man pursues, this wisdom, this knowledge. And here's a man who he states in verse 16, I've witnessed it. I've researched it. Do you think he had the resources to look at some of these things? I believe so. First bell, right? Okay, we got 5 more minutes. Okay, so in verse 17, we can take a little time to focus on these. And I applied my heart to know wisdom and to know madness and folly. I perceive that this is also but a striving after wind. So in this next section, as we get ready for chapter 2, if you haven't read chapter 2 yet, go ahead and read it. Read 2, 3, and 4 to kind of envelop yourselves around this. This next section, he's going to talk about pursuing pleasure. And Solomon he's one of those pleasure seekers, okay? Brother John would say this in his sermons and in his Bible classes. Sin is pleasurable. And you might say, is that really the message we want to put out there? You need to really acknowledge it. And don't go looking for it, because you will find pleasure in it. And when you find it, hopefully you won't be stuck in it. And you won't be obsessed with it, or you won't find yourself wanting to do it over and over and over again, and then it becomes a part of you, and you're living your life in a sinful state. You know, there are things that the preacher is going to say in this next chapter where we're going to go, no way, I would never do that. I would never try to experience that. I would never pursue that. That's folly. Probably what we need to be looking at, I did pursue that. It was horrible. I don't want to ever go back to it. It almost ruined me. I hope we're not that person, but we might be. Because remember, at the beginning of this class, I talked about the person who is desperate, who's looking desperately to be fulfilled, who is desperately looking for something better, something bigger, something that to pursue. And it takes all their time and effort to do it. And if it's a sinful thing, you're ruined. It'll ruin you. And you may leave God. Why are teens leaving the church? Why are people leaving the church? When they know the truth. And they've heard it, they've obeyed it. And that's where Paul comes in the book of Galatians and says, here's the faith system. I know it's good. God gave it to me. I'm giving it to you. It's worth something. It will fulfill you. Don't leave it. And some of them tried to preach another doctrine in chapter 1. And Peter got up from the table. I'm going to say that more than once. And Paul had to tell him, what you're doing is wrong. You're following man-made ideas. You're not doing what I told you to do. And Paul had to correct him through the Spirit. He corrected him. Because even Barnabas had been caught up in it. That's the futility that we're looking at today. That's what Ecclesiastes is nailing down hard. Don't get caught up in those things and find yourself like Peter and Barnabas going the wrong direction. The faith system's good. Hang on to it, live it, learn it, live it, continue to learn it, and live it more. That's the beauty of the faith system. And no, you won't find that anywhere in chapter 1. Solomon's never going to say that. But for us today, he's saying that these things are futile and there's no fulfillment in it. And the fulfillment is found in us. in God, through the system, the faith system. Any other comments before we're dismissed? Okay, Jim?
It kind of strikes me that it's ironic, you were talking about history repeating itself, that, Henry David Thoreau wrote Walden, in which he wrestled with these very things we're talking about today, and it's such a shame that he couldn't find the answer, in Ecclesiastes in God. He was looking in the wrong place. He didn't want to live a futile life. He died on TV when he was in his middle 30s without God.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, class. Appreciate the comments. We'll start chapter 2. Chapter 2.
No.